expand that. So I was thinking a little bit about like some pop and jazz R&B groups that are kind of on the cusp of being this is a no net, so it's not quite a big band, but it's not a small group either. Um, but again, it wasn't like I've studied it. I haven't, the other people who did finish the arrangements have more training in terms of like arranging for a larger group like that.
Hey, can we talk about the musicians you work with? Because I feel like there's both elements of this jazz improvisation, but also like immense classical precision and training. And you're right. It's this group sounds gigantic, and it's like it's not a big band as you're saying. Like it's just like in numbers of pieces, but like well, I guess that's more of like a stylistic term at this point,
Yeah, well,
right?
I mean, someone like JC would be better. I mean, I think sometimes there are big bands that are called into the big bands and maybe have 11 pieces. I think that nine is usually kind of, maybe just on the not quite there yet. But yeah, the musicians. Well, I mean, um, most most of the I had a session booked right before like in March of 2020 with five of these players, and then COVID hit the U.S. So that kind of got delayed, and this group started. But this group kind of eventually coalesced, and yeah, I mean, we all have different backgrounds. Pretty much everybody in the group has played in all sorts of contexts. They're all working musicians who played in lots of different with a lot of different styles. A good many of them have their principal background is in jazz, but not everybody. I mean, Michelle Kinney has played in a lot of jazz contexts, and she's played with like people like Henry Threadgill, who's one of my heroes in the composition and jazz world. But she's also played in a lot of pop things. She's also a composer and writes in what we used to kind of call new music or kind of classical composition. Um, so but most there's definitely a roots in jazz and improvised music. Whereas I'm really a jazz fan who's learned some stuff from listening to jazz, and I know a little bit about jazz harmony and some theory, but I'm not. No one would call me for the jazz gig. Like
I know what you mean. I feel like my chops are in a similar place.
yeah, I mean and I feel confident about what I can do. I don't have that. Yeah, I don't have those chops, but I also don't have that training either. So I do love to play
I'm good at
standards at home and stuff.
good at faking, but it in my opinion, it sounds like you're much better at faking it than I
Well,
am. Your record sounds pretty darn good, my friend.
yeah. Well,
Uh,
I don't play a lot in this record, which is kind of fun. But yeah, I mean, I'm there, but I'm not like.
how did this session go? Was this like all of you performing live in one room during the session? How did you capture?
Yeah. I think more or less. I mean, we had one rehearsal the day before the session, just at my house. Um, I've gotten used to doing a lot of sessions without rehearsal because I kind of like to hear things um, get captured, come together for the first time and have that be recorded. But this project I was dissuaded from doing that with this because it was more complicated than most of my stuff. So we had a rehearsal and then we did it in 2 days at Creation Audio. So the their main Studio A is, I don't know if it's the size of a basketball court, but it's pretty big. And they have a little drum ISO booth, ISO room. So that's where Peter Henning, the drummer, was in that room. We can see him through glass. The rest of us were in the same room. Zach, the guitarist, his amplifier is isolated in another area, but we were all together, and there's baffling to kind of reduce bleed, but the bleed is pretty inevitable, particularly with the horns standing next to one another. Cello and an upright bass and other things we'll get on my piano. My voice is on my piano. So so we did it, yeah, but you could still kind of manipulate things a little bit. We were able to do a fair amount of editing. Sometimes you couldn't edit because there's too much
At
bleed,
live.
but we were able to do some. So it was a live recording, and I sang live, but we weren't purists about it. If there was an opportunity to kind of nudge something, we would do that. So I kind of like singing live just because it's they can hear what what's happening, what I'm doing, and also some of these tunes are a little flexible and helps with cueing. And also for me, it's sort of like I like to try to get a good vocal and a good performance, and then I don't. I would rather do that than try to sing 13 times and make a composite, you know, lead vocal. It's just doesn't feel as musical to me. I do it sometimes, but um,
I think we all have to do those sessions every now and
yeah.
again.
I mean, it would probably sound
How
better
do
if I
you
did
go
that,
about
but
writing material like this?
what was
Do
that?
you come up with an entire, like, do you treat it like a novel and it's just like, well, I've got this thing and then we'll have musical accompaniment, or do musical little inspirations come and then you fill in the gaps?
Um, well, I would I don't treat it like a novel. I mean, I've written novels, but that's this is more. It's not like that really. But the two of the tunes on this
I guess
record
I'm trying
are. I don't mean to say
only
it's not
trying
as
to
good as that. It just doesn't take me as long.
I guess I'm modestly trying to get you to brag about being a
Yeah,
novelist because you're a good
sure.
writer, and I
Thank you.
think it shines in your musical writing too.
Well, yeah. I mean, I think I'm a better lyricist now in my 40s and 50s than I was when I was younger. Partly because I had this long gap away from music where I was writing criticism and journalism and then fiction, and I just made me more careful about, I just became better at, I think, revising things,
Careful is a
um,
good word. I like that.
and I guess I don't know, as I maybe became a little more, um, well, how to put it, I I like I like to know what I'm doing, and I want there to be some clarity with line to line, like okay, I know what this image is trying to do, or I'm committed to this phrase. I'm not I'm not necessarily I don't need there to be clarity throughout the entire lyric. If I feel like
Yeah,
okay, this might have some emotional resonance, or it might suggest a narrative. If it's pretty elliptical and you can't quite, is this a breakup song, or is it something else? Is this a romantic thing, or is it not? I kind of like that ambiguity. I don't want it to be ambiguous for the sake of being ambiguous, but um,
I know what you mean. I felt I got that vibe from it where it's like my brain started filling in its own gaps with my own autobiographical feelings, and
oh,
because
good,
because
yeah,
there
yeah,
were lines that stuck out and I was just like, oh, what? And I had to ask, was like, oh wait, is this a overarching theme later
yeah.
in the record?
The two
Because
long songs
especially
have
on the
a
track I played, I love the line, just the sentiment of just like it matters to you a whole lot, matters to me
uh-huh.
a whole lot, but yeah, it's game of things. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Just stuff like that. Um, I really appreciate those sentiments where it's just like, oh man, that could mean so much, everything and nothing, and it really hit me.
Oh, good.
It's,
Well,
it's curious about how those processes come about. Like,
yeah, yeah. I
I
kind of
knew
didn't
your
answer your original
background
question.
in
Um,
print writing as well as well as writing your novels, and it's just like I was always curious about people who do both kinds of
yeah.
writing. Where it's just like when do you distinguish? Where it's like, is this a song? Is this going to be a
Hmm.
chapbook? Is this? Am I going to? Is this going to be more of like a story that I need to tell? Like,
Hmm.
what at what point does it's like, oh no, this is a song. This is a series of songs. This is going to
Yeah,
become the next album, and I'm looking forward to it.
yeah, yeah. Well, I'm not really right now. I'm not really doing these things simultaneously. I mean, I still do some
Sure.
writing, page writing, but I'm not at work on a manuscript, so I'm not. I sort of I kind of got stuck doing that. Meaning, I just sort of I was starting manuscripts that I couldn't finish, and I kind of gradually moved back to music, which has really been a good. I'm happy to be back there, and I do think of song lyrics as a branch of literature, whether or not the
Yeah, they are.
lyricist has self-consciously literary ambitions. In other words, I sometimes people will say things like, "Wow, these song lyrics rise to the level of poetry," but I'm not looking for a promotion. I think that lots of song lyrics written by 16-year-olds who probably don't have a lot of literary um, sophistication, might be great lyricists. And then there, of course, are people who are self-consciously interacting with poetry or fiction or whatever. But I just think it's just a literary form either way. Anyway, so that's kind of how I think of myself as still kind of as a word writer. In terms of the two long songs on this record, how it kind of came about is I basically wrote more prose like things in a notebook away from the piano without music in mind. And they were much longer. And then I kind of started to see how I could turn those into singable melodies. And a
Sure.
lot of things were discarded along the way. So some of the gaps, I guess, in the narrative, or have to do with, well, there were three lines that, between these two lines, but they didn't sing very well, and I realized that I don't really need those. I can go right from here to there. So it's kind of like it's not quite this, but there's a kind of a school of poetry called erasure poetry where
Yes. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you take a found text and you black out things, and like a page of a novel, and then you blot out words until you get kind of what's left, and you kind of form a poem that way.
It
It's
is.
not bad.
Well, I know what you mean, like, because it can be an effective device to write lyrics, but it can also be like an effective device to just like look at your own writing and be like, wait, I guess this does kind of cut to the chase I'm trying to get at. But song is a really good way of, like, music has the ability to kind of put subtext where it's like, oh, I guess I don't need that passage. It's like this.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, a couple of the songs are a little more conventional, um, and weren't really written in that way. We're really kind of, you know, they rhyme and they have a pretty straightforward meter and stuff like that. I mean, I think they're maybe not quite conventional, but so it kind of depends. Well, a lot of times with these tunes, there was like with that tune, "If Spring Comes Like They Say." Most of the tunes were written in the months leading up to the session, which was last summer. But that one, the songy part of it, the simple sort of song that you quoted from, that was something I had kind of 2020, and I liked it and thought, oh, this feels good to me, and it feels sort of emotive, and I can feel like I can be expressive with this. But I don't know that it feels a little dull. I don't know if that's enough. It didn't feel complete really, and I guess sometimes I kind of lose interest with doing things like, oh, it just needs a bridge, or it just needs a like. I love pop songs that have those real formal devices, but I only want to do that if it feels like I want to do it. I don't ever want to feel like, okay, I got to modulate to the bridge and I got to have a hooky chorus. And so
No, I
I don't know
totally
why I'm
agree.
saying it like that. I'm not, it's just that I just didn't feel compelled to do that with this one. So then I just sort of kept writing things either on the piano and then on a notation app that just kind of took some of those ideas and just kind of kept expanding them in either direction. Um, and that's kind of how those longer things came about. And then I would send these rough draft charts to one of my fellow band mates, and then they would take those arrangements and kind of refine and clarify my ideas, and then I would leave space for them to write some of their own stuff, and they would also just kind of insert new compositional elements within. So it became very collaborative, and that whole process step of the collaborative process sort of transformed a lot of the tunes. You know, um, so it was a really nice collaboration in that way. It wasn't like I like to be sort of I like to hear things that I've come up with. So it wasn't like I have this chord chart now, write a fancy arrangement. I was able to kind of get some ideas across, but I also um, got these other ideas, especially from people who just have they just have more experience and more, they just know what they're doing with arranging for this kind of group, and they just have more sophisticated ideas about that. So it was really it was a really great way to feel like some ideas were being realized, and then some whole things that I would never have imagined or been able to execute was brought to the material. So yeah, it was a fun. And I guess my original idea was that we do the same thing with another session with extra strings, and then
Ooh,
more that people could
that would be fun.
arrange. Yeah, but what happened is that a couple of songs were quite long. We did the 2 day session. I was like, well, it's kind of almost an album now, and it was kind of an elaborate project, kind of expensive, and I was like, I don't know if I can. I think maybe we got to hold off on that, So I do want to do that, but I started to feel like this is like what they call in the business world scope creep, and I was like,
Yeah, this is how the sausage is made. Sometimes where you to loop back to an earlier question, sometimes where you draw the line is financially.
yeah, right, yeah. I mean, so um, yeah, but yeah, it was a fun. I mean, it was a really pretty efficient session, So it
It
was.
really sounds like there were mycelial tendencies in the collaboration where it's just like, hey, I've got this, oh, you've got that, let's work it comes together so naturally and lively, and really digging this record. I really dig the way you write, and I dig your style. Thanks for putting the playlist together. Let's talk about this performance at the Parkway.
Okay. Oh yeah. Um, I should lead that discussion. Well, yeah. So We're gonna play 2 sets at the Parkway, 2 short sets, I think 45 minutes, and just so that we name all the people, and I think I have them memorized, but I'm gonna pull out my
Yeah,
record. I mean, I do have the names memorized, of course. But so it's me on piano and vocals, but we have Christopher Thompson on saxophones and clarinet, Brian Murray, another saxophonist, Elaine Burt on
excellent.
trumpet, and then J.C. Sanford on trombone, uh, and then Zach Harris on guitar. Chris, J.C., and Zach contributed arrangements to the project. Michelle Kinney on cello, and then the bassist on the record is Charlie Lincoln, a great bassist who's now living and working in New York. So Dan Carpel, who's comparably great, is now the bassist, so he'll be there tonight. And then Peter Hennig on drums. So that's the group. But then we'll also play about half the set as a 6 piece. Brian, JC, and Elaine are kind of joined us for this project, and that's been great, and hope to do that more. 6 of us kind of the group that kind of gigs more regularly. So we have some material that's just kind of for us, or that
Sure.
arranged for us, more casually. So, and I'll play some old songs from I've been doing this since the 1990s, so I'll play a couple of tunes from my youth or young adulthood, and then some other stuff. So it won't just be this music. We'll
Yeah,
play. We'll probably play the whole record, but the record is relatively short.
and it's this Sunday at the
It's this
Parkway. What
Sunday,
time
yeah,
does
right.
music start again?
Oh, what time? Um, it's 7:30, I think.
Oh, there you
Um,
go. That's a good time.
yeah, maybe I should say 7 just to be safe, but I think it's doors 6:30, showtime at 7:30. These are things I mean, I'm gonna be there, but yeah, I think that's right. But I'm gonna say 7 so that you don't miss anything.
Excellent. Sounds good. Oh, well, thank you so much for coming back. We are going to hear some. We're going to hear the conclusion of your mixtape, but we're also going to hear some new local music
Oh,
that
cool.
was actually released this summer. Some of it is having release shows next week. We're going to hear some Bathtub Sig, We Are the Willows, as well as
Oh,
Sister
cool.
Species. But this is a record by Orchid Eaton, came on the show last summer and just released this summer. There is a song called Summertime here on KFAI. Can you still hear me? I can't tell.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay, perfect. Um, yeah, it's been a while since I've done one of these live shows, so
Oh, okay, yeah.
it's there's all these new quirks uh, that I'm dealing with. I started pre-taping majority of the shows just because it
Oh,
was easier with
oh
everyone's
yeah.
schedule, and now I got so used to it that I forgot. Oh yeah, there's all these things that can go wrong.
Oh, okay, yeah. Well, sorry, I could have done the other thing too. I didn't know. Yeah, but
Oh no, you're
thanks for
fine.
doing it this way.
I I've been bad at scheduling things this year. This has been a weird year because I'm also in
Mm,
the process of making a record, so I
yeah.
feel like I'm not as efficient Um, it's kind of why I started taking a step back from curating things because I feel like if I felt like I was starting to suck at doing all of it. So it's just like
Right. You felt like
it's
you were
time to
kind of
pick.
stretched in every area. Yeah.
It's time to pick it. It's time to pick a lane.
Yeah,
But
that's
yeah,
tough though because like I know what you mean. I I just did a um I was on Danny Sigelman's show on KBM a couple of
he's
nights
great.
ago.
He's great.
Yeah, and brought a bunch of records in, and I did radio at KFAI when I was a teenager and then into my early 20s, and yeah, I've done it here and there since then and some live DJing. But so, I miss this. I want to get back into radio, do another. But I was like, I do kind of want to do that, but it's also like, yeah, but I'm gonna prepare 10 hours every week to do the show, you
Yep.
know, and then there's a feeling on part. We're just talking now, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
We're
Yeah. Yeah.
not,
Yeah.
yeah. Not that I'm gonna say anything that I wouldn't want people to know, but you know, it's like a part of me thinks like, like this is where I live. If I'm active in a lot of different areas and I'm not just promoting myself, but I'm kind of like, you know, doing like you're doing, you're promoting other music, you're talking about other stuff, that's like, then you're just more part of the community. And like, oftentimes when
I
you are busy, you find that, I mean, I have had times where I'm not very productive, but it's not because there's a lot of pressure on my time. I'm just
yeah.
not getting it together. And there
Oh
are
yeah.
times where I'm doing a million things and somehow it's all happening. But at the same time, like you said, it's that thing of like, if I have a gig on a Saturday and I got to get a radio show together, I don't want to come to the gig and be like not quite prepared and like I'm in front of people like forgetting the
Yeah.
music.
Yeah. And I that was the whole reason I would do those things,
Mm-hmm.
not for like personal glory as much as like, well, this is how you maintain connections to the scene.
Right.
It's just it's like some people have churches like we have these,
Yeah.
and but it kind of just became this thing where when you have so many irons on the fire, uh, eventually you're gonna put out some bad food. I feel like I was burning a lot of dishes, and I like doing the show because I feel like you know I work nights, so a lot of the times when people are like, "Hey, come to this thing," it's just like can't. So this allows me to kind of stay
Yeah.
somewhat connected to what's going on. It's like I
Right.
can't be there, but I at least want to help, you know, in some way, in some fashion,
Yeah.
because it's just like when you first start out, I feel like you're so on the ground and playing with other people, almost like a stand-up comic, and you have like your crew of songwriters that you bounce ideas off of,
Okay. Yeah.
and then these are good problems to have. But as you and your colleagues kind of get your own footing, you start just kind of walking your own paths a little bit,
Yeah.
and that's because it's a sign that you and your colleagues are doing, like the work. That's like
Yeah.
that's what they should be doing. But it's like I feel like it gets to the point where it's like I don't see these people unless we're on the same thing, and this kind of happens to
Yeah.
help stay plugged in because like I used to be able to like, oh yeah, I know when this record's coming out, this record's coming out, this record's coming out. I feel like if I didn't do this, I
You
wouldn't know.
wouldn't know. Yeah. Yeah.
I
That's
wouldn't know.
definitely different. I mean, when I was and like how I operate with bands now is I mean, I do have projects where other projects where we just get together and we rehearse and it's the whole thing is democratic and we'll get together and just kind of work on some stuff.
Mhm.
Um, but like this project, it's much different than when I was young, leading a band under my own name with different band names. But we'd get together weekly and practice, whether or not we had a gig. We were all
Yeah, yeah,
younger, and I mean, I know for myself too, I kind of needed more practice. Now it's like we're just if we can get one practice for the show, get everybody together, that's
Yeah.
great. And so on one hand, it's like we've sort of been practicing for 30, 20, 40, whatever it is, years. So it's like you're kind of prepared for things, but you
Yeah.
don't have as much time for like, let's just figure this out. Let's just screw around. We're not under like, it's not like,
Yeah.
okay, I got 4 more songs to get through. I know people have to leave at 8. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I, 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 I also think like, with those kinds of practices, it's like you just kind of expect everyone is just like, well, you're probably already working on your instrument anyway. Like, dude,
Right.
we don't need the, or maybe I'm just showing my age at this point where it's just like, because I do remember where it's like, yeah, we would practice every week like it was a sports team. It's
Mm-hmm.
just like, no, we
Yeah.
get to, we are a unit, and this is the thing we are doing, and we are, and then like now I'm just like, why are we practicing every week? Why we
Yeah. Right.
it's like, you get to that thing. It's like it's like I'm working on the repertoire at home, and then
Yeah.
it's, but also just life gets in the way where I feel like
Yeah.
logistically, just getting that many people in the same room, I feel like you're gonna get either one, or you have to split off into sections. And could
Yeah.
that be done on a thing like this? Like, could you split into I feel like it has to. Everyone needs to be there.
Well, we've had this show, since it's kind of a bigger show. We did have 2 rehearsals, but neither of them, we didn't have a full group either time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, we'll sing somebody's parts, or we'll just have to like, um, just have to kind of like, this is theirs, and we kind of, it's a little bit harder. It's harder to, know how things are. But 9 is challenging. 9 is a lot. That's a lot of people to get
It's
together.
Yeah, that's a unique number too. I feel like it's not like, it's not unheard of, but it's not often done too. Like, not, but it's like it's a great number for a horn section. Like, it just has. I feel like some of those James Brown bands were 9 pieces back in the day. Like, it just had
Yeah,
like
probably
the,
even a little larger if backing singers, and you
yeah,
usually had, I think, a 4 or 5 part horn section, and then usually 2 to 3 backing singers. Yeah, for sure. A lot of like R&B bands, especially in the '70s. If you're making good money and stuff, and you can afford to have
that's
that many people. I mean, I couldn't really do a 9-piece thing routinely just because
no,
we just don't get paid that much to like you know I can whatever. So but yeah, I like it. And it's funny because I first started thinking this like, oh yeah, we'll have horn arrangements, but I thought I don't want that. I think the whole group is supposed to be integrated. Because a
yeah,
lot of the tunes, it's like with in the 6-piece, it's like, well, it's cello, guitar, and saxophone play this line either in unison or in harmony, or I play this with the guitar, or whatever. So I like the idea of that. This is very horn dominated, but um, it's kind of moves around in terms of the voices. So it's not really like a horn, like on a great like a Gamble and Hoff production, like by the OJs. Usually was like they
yeah,
did the track, and then the horns and strings would be arranged and added on top of the
yeah,
track,
yeah,
independent of the basic track. And that's sort of a classic R&B and pop sort of school. Um, and I love that. Um, but this one, I kind of wanted this to be more like we're all the group. Like I
mhm,
love this thing of like this quote. I think it's not attributed because a lot of people have said it, but like you're all in the rhythm section.
yeah,
No matter what role you play in the group, you're all in the rhythm section. Like
yeah,
um, it was partly I like that because that's the area that I perpetually want to work on more, like just being
yeah.
groovier, being more laying back a bit more. I tend to rush, so but that kind of I like that idea of the whole. I just think a good group. It's always like you're all kind of it's one group, not like
Yeah.
a
It's
section or
it's one giant engine
yeah,
that
yeah, yeah,
the groove is kind of constantly like, sometimes it speeds up, but it's still cohesively moving, and it's that I like bands like that because it really does feel alive. Where like I almost feel like sometimes a sectional it almost feels like a choir, like where it's like
Yeah.
you don't like bring it all together until the performance a little bit, and
Yeah. This
but
is
it's also
when we play this repertoire, it's a little bit. We're still off air, right?
yeah.
When we play this repertoire, it can be a little challenging for me just because I mean I really love playing it, and I'm starting to kind of get it more. But we haven't played these songs very much because they need nine of us. We've played a couple as six. A couple of them are more flexible that way. But so I haven't had like lots and lots of experience. Plus a couple of those songs they're kind of like four songs. It's like
Yeah,
it's
they
sort of like
have like
I mean just
phases.
in terms of memory. It's like it's not just like learning one song. It's kind of like learning three or four. So I was like okay, but also I'm not really used to I write the chart, I learn the tune, I look at the chart while I'm learning it, and then from there I'm trying to be memorized. And and I'm used to being in a situation where it's like, you know, oh, okay, I forgot the lyrics, so I'm just gonna vamp for however long
Yeah,
it takes me, and then I'll come back. But
yes,
if
exactly.
everybody's reading the chart, they're like, "Where
What
are
do you
you?"
do?
I'm
Yeah, where
I'm on
you're
bar 114. I don't know where you are. So that's a little bit. And like some of the charts where I'm like, it has me like I turned it over to JC and like I'm resting for 16 bars. I'm like, okay.
I no, I know what you mean because I'm also guilty of that. Where like it's either you make a mistake and then you're like, well, you just wait for the next.
Yeah,
It's like, where are you? It's just like I'm on the downbeat. I don't know.
yeah,
We're just which one? We're just when it comes around again. We're just
yeah, yeah, right, yeah, yeah,
that's where it is. I don't
yeah,
know. Like we're on stage. Pretend like it was intentional. You
right.
know, like it
And it's a
just
great feeling when you're with the group and like something happens. Like I love it when like oh someone dived into the solo before it's the solo, but
yes,
it's the same chord change. So we're all just there. Okay, this is the solo now, and then we just kind of intuitively know. Okay, so we're gonna go back to this or whatever. That's always a really fun feeling when you realize, okay, we just totally rearranged out on the spot. But some things you can't do, you can't communicate in, telepathically. If
no,
someone
yeah,
decides like, if someone decides they're gonna go, you know, they're gonna go to a new, modulate to a new key, we don't know that's gonna happen. Like we
no,
can't,
yeah. You
so
can't, you can't just like magically recreate those like Les McCann moments of just effortless modulation. But that's why the happy accidents exist because like I feel
hmm
like sometimes you feel like it is telepathic communication until it
right,
happens
yeah,
where it's like the routine play where someone drops the ball and it's just like, oh, I thought it was like, oh, we didn't actually communicate that.
yeah,
We
yeah,
were
right,
and it's but it that's when you have to remind yourself. You have to like go into like I can't remember what philosopher said this, but it's just like there's two things that don't have to have meaning at all: music and laughter.
oh, okay, cool, yeah,
It's just like it's only
that's
music.
smart, yeah. So this record you're making is that a band record?
This is my first solo record,
Okay,
which is both fun and terrifying.
okay,
Because it's on, and after this tune will be
back,
what? Yeah, back on the air. But it's kind of liberating because on one end you get to like try all the things you've always wanted to do on previous records where people were kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I'm feeling that idea, and then so it's like
yeah,
you get
okay,
to do this and be like, yes, I've always wanted to try this.
right,
But on the other end, like there's this weird vulnerability of like, oh, I mean, like if this sucks, it's kind of my fault.
oh sure, yeah, yeah, well,
But I'm having fun. I'm working with Holly Hansen, who's really she's great. She's
okay,
just like great to work with, and I feel like we're on the same page a lot.
okay, cool, yeah,
So it's been really fun, and but yeah, it's also just one of those things where you're like, you feel like you're constantly doing it. And just have the underwriting cards that I keep forgetting about. So after these cards, we're going to be on, and I figure that the tracks we have left are the Elvis one, Blind Willie Johnson, Beach Boys, and the Roaches.
Okay.
So I figured we can just kind of get back into the mixtape discussion
All right. Cool. Yeah, it'd be fun.
after I play these underwriting cards that I'm
Okay.
not
How
supposed to
much
forget.
time is that? Do I have time to go to the bathroom or not? Is it a minute?
Yeah, it's about a minute. Yeah.
No, I won't. I'm not gonna risk that.
Yeah, it's like
Do you guys still use? Do you guys still use the? I know they're not 8 tracks, but the cards that I used when I was at KFI, or is it digital now?
no, they're it's a computer
Yeah.
designed to look like that thing. So like where you would put it in, that's just the
Okay.
button you
Oh,
press.
fun. Fun
And
again.
it's like so like and then you just play these 30-second, so it's like they're cards in a sense, but
Yeah.
like stand by. Uh, oh, it's a little bit longer, but 5 seconds. All right, so we just heard new local music by Bathtub Sig. We also had new Sister Species, Good Doom, Orchid Eaton, Alan Sparhawk, new Taba, and new Dilly Dally Alley, as well as the new Dylan Hicks, who's joining me right now. Today's mixtape is made by 10 Records Dylan Hicks, Bring to a Desert Island. We heard most of it before we were talking about your new record, but what we have left is some Elvis and a really cool track that I was not familiar with, this Beach Boys tune. Because I'm not really familiar with like Beach Boys banjo. Is there a banjo on this? I feel like there's a banjo on this.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, yeah. That's Cabin Essence. It's one of the Smile tunes. I first heard it on the record Smiley Smile, which was kind of
Sure.
the sort of the kind of hodgepodge that resulted from that abandoned session. But yeah, Van Dyke Parks, the lyricist, was sort of working with a lot of Americana things, so the banjo factors into um, some of the recordings. Um, I don't always. I love Van Dyke Parks. I don't always think that his lyrics were effective during that period, but I do often like them. I do. I guess when I was young, particularly, I just love this idea of having these sort of somewhat esoteric lyrics put into this very pleasing pop context that was also kind of experimental and kind of
Oh yeah.
and I would again I wasn't really picking things that had to do with this record, but a few years ago I always make lists of records I want to make, and one of the records I wrote down I want to make was a Beach Boys record. I didn't mean a record rich in vocal harmony. It's not really my. I love vocal harmony, but I'm not myself good at it really. And but I guess I just meant like something kind of lush and melodic, and kind of harmonically rich. And then I had this idea for this kind of expanded small screens record that would, you know, kind of play with different kinds of song forms and introduce and bring in some more of these jazz arrangement elements. But I think in a way that this record is kind of both those things. Even a lot of the instrumental melodies are with Elaine Burt playing trumpet. I think I wrote a lot of melodies that are kind of like back rack kind of thing, pretty simple, pop melodies that kind of can sing over the group and stuff. So I don't know. That's definitely, and that was Beach Boys were a big thing when I was in my teens and 20s for me. I just kind of became. I loved them as a boy too, but I became um, pretty completist. I'd say just a little before they were re-embraced by the sort of Mart set. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
when I was a teenager, they were a little square among the sort of hipper, you know, step
It's
culture.
it's funny because like I feel like Elvis was going through a period where it's like it was kind of square to admit that you were in
Uh-huh.
to Elvis,
Isn't that still the case?
and
I don't
a
know.
lot of like there's like a renewed interest in some of that,
Okay,
and
yeah.
but I find it interesting that it's just like it's almost at once he was the king, and now it's like kind of square to be like, no, I like Elvis. I like it's just
Yeah.
like, but
Well, I
I a lot of that stuff. I think people forget that Elvis was called the king for a reason because like some of those live sessions are awesome. Like that TV the comeback special
oh yeah.
that was killer.
He looks so cool too.
Yeah.
Um yeah, I picked this his version of Mystery Train, which is Little Junior Parker recording originally, and it's just one of the Sun sessions, 55. Another record that was important to me when I was a kid. Also, I picked it because um, Greil Marcus, the music critic and cultural critic, put out a book in the mid '70s called Mystery Train, which I discovered probably in the early '80s, and that's the sort of critical discourse and reading about music has always been important to me, and I've got to know Greil a little bit. So, and that record always sounds alive to me. Elvis did make a lot of um, inferior records too, and he's not like some artists. And some artists like you can kind of rely on their taste, and you can't always with Elvis. You know what I mean? Um, but I do love his great records, and I love that one.
Oh yeah, and he does have some great records.
Oh yeah.
This one included. Why don't we listen to it? Because here is Mystery Train by Elvis Presley here on Desert Islands. All right, now you got time to go. Ooh, how much time do we even have in general? 3 minutes, 3 minutes, 4.5. We might. I don't have any more cards to play, so we might be like right on time here. So when Dylan gets back, uh, we might have to wrap things up, unfortunately, for the folks watching with us. But we will talk about his new record once again, just to make sure, just in case you missed it, if you're just tuning in. And we got some Blind Willie Johnson, Beach Boys, and the Roaches on the way. And if you missed some stuff from the mixtape, it'll be in this window for those just tuning in and putting gifts in the Discord. Appreciate y'all. Um, yeah, looking at the timing, I think we have just enough to play the songs and then do just like a quick wrap up. Like, hey, my new record's out now.
Okay.
Uh, go to the show at the Parkway. Just say the who, the
Sure. Yeah.
what's, the where's, and the whys. Because Democracy Now is next, and that we got to make sure that starts on time.
Yeah. Right. Because you got to syndicate it. Yeah.
So yeah, it'll be like a 90-second air break of just kind of say the name of the show, the name of the artist, and then let you
Okay.
plug whatever, like where people can find you
Uh-huh.
on the internet if you want to go there. Some people are kind
Sure.
of, not doing that.
Well, I'm not. I'm. I'll. I'm not discouraging people from reaching out to me.
I'm kind of getting discouraged about which ones to use because
Yeah.
I feel like it's not that I'm not here for the neo-Luddite movement. I think it's kind
Mm-hmm.
of fun and intriguing. I just, as an independent artist, I still get, unfortunately, some utility out of like having a Facebook because
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
some towns like that is the internet. Like if you have a small business, you have a Facebook page, and that's how you get
Yeah.
in contact with the barbecue joint
Facebook is
that
a
you
lot.
played.
I have
You
more
know,
reach on Facebook than I do. I'm only on two of them now. I left Twitter, and I
I left
tried
Twitter.
Threads, but it was I wasn't really getting much,
No.
interaction. So I prefer Instagram in some ways, but I do get more kind of response on Facebook. Instagram can be weird for me too because I've been trying to be good about it this year, but I just between you and me, not that you would spread this, but I had a terrible couple of days, maybe 7 months ago, where I I don't know how this happened originally, but I visited somebody's Instagram page and I don't know. I guess I just checked to see. I was looking at their followers,
Yeah.
who they followed, and then I
Right.
saw, and I thought of this person kind of a friend. And I thought, oh, they don't follow me anymore. Okay, and
I
and
I've
I
done
kind
that.
of,
Yeah.
I felt kind of wounded. I was sort of like, gee, why not? I thought we were we'll talk like in clubs or
Yeah.
whatever, and like we played together. You know, okay. I started doing that with my entire
Oh, you went
group.
down the rabbit hole. You went.
Yeah,
Oh,
Instagram had to cut me off. They said they closed my account because they said we believe you are doing something psychologically destructive. And I
they send
literally
you a
was.
message?
Well, they closed my access to my Instagram account. And
Whoa.
they were probably right to do so. I mean, I was going through
Yeah.
everyone, and I'm like, wow. And and now I'm trying to remember that it's like a lot of people they might unfollow on Instagram. So it's like, well, I don't have anything against you. I'm just really not that interested in your music, and that's mostly what you promote. And in a way, it should be better for me. Like, well, I want more people who kind of are interested.
Yeah. It's like the people who stick around are kind of.
Yeah,
It's yeah.
but it's a weird thing because on Facebook, the numbers are too high. I would never do that. I
Yeah.
would never like it doesn't feel like it's not as much about like approval, or it is a little bit, but I don't
I
know. I
saw.
just don't really think about that on Facebook. Whereas on Instagram, I do feel like, and there's always the Instagram. There's the thing of
Yeah.
like, I got to keep my balance. Like if you're
It, what
famous, it's like I follow 4 people: Michelle Obama, Patti Smith.
I respect that though. I honestly respect that, and because I had to cut off myself for similar reasons,
Yeah.
and but also there is this distraction factor,
Mm.
and then so like now I feel like I'm kind of becoming one of those people where it's like, wait, why don't they follow me? And it's like because I don't know who I follow anymore. I'm trying to not look at it. I'm
Yeah,
trying
I
not to
try not to look at it,
pay
but
you.
you will a while be like, oh, I have fewer followers today than I had last week. So,
Yeah, that is
how did I
that.
alienate people, or or it could be like a bot that decided not to.
I think that a lot of it is most of the internet. What I wouldn't say most, but because I don't know that for sure, but there's a healthy amount of bots
Sure.
following everybody. And like people used to say that, like, oh, they got bots following you. It's just like, that doesn't necessarily mean people bought their followers anymore because like
No, no.
bots are just following like, that's another reason I left Twitter is because like most of that was just angry, hateful little bots.
Yeah,
like,
right.
it's
Yeah.
like it just wasn't even real. And then I just felt like there was this like Kaiser Soze moment where you're like
Hmm.
seeing it all connect and you're like, this isn't real. I gotta
Yeah.
like you see the farce and it just isn't good. And then with Instagram, I tried to trick myself into saying like, oh, I got Facebook and Instagram and I got it balanced. But now I notice because they're owned by Meta,
Hmm.
sometimes you'll get more Instagram traffic. And then you're like,
Okay.
oh, hey. And then your Facebook traffic will go down. It's like it just seems like a game to get you to buy ads.
That could be. I
Like,
do think more and more that like, because there have been times when I'm like, and I think a lot of people believe like, okay, you've got to put the link in comments, or like Facebook's going to punish you for this or that or this or that.
right.
More and more,
Yeah.
I think it's nothing. It's
Yeah.
just whether people respond to it in the first hour or not. That's almost all it is.
I think that really it's just an algorithm kind of run amok.
Yeah,
And it's like I
there's no one's making any decisions. It's just like,
no.
are people
Yeah.
responding or not? And if they're not in the early stages, you're probably not going to get any traction on it ever,
No.
unless it just someone finds it. But I don't know. It's like it's one of those things where in the best of all possible worlds, I'd be like, I'm not online. I'm reading more. I'm walking in nature. I'm doing more things that I value. But it's like you can kind of do that if you're famous. If you're like trying to
Yeah,
promote yourself and you're not famous,
yeah.
you don't have the luxury to be like,
No.
I remove myself from this misery.
The, the
It's like,
the only thing you can do is if you have like a niche where you're like, you know, you're gonna recoup expenses,
yeah,
you can do less, but
sure.
you can't really not be on it.
No.
Like you, like I think you can be at a certain level where it's just like you can not have a TikTok,
Yeah.
but like you gotta pick one of them because and not everyone should have a TikTok. I feel like
No.
everyone's brand wouldn't work on TikTok, and
Right.
so it's just like, but it's just it really is this catch 22 where it's just like it doesn't really bring in that much more money, but like
Yeah.
you're gonna end up on an island of just like the same audience, and that'll gradually shrink if you don't kind of try to connect
Yeah.
yourself to something. And it's so it's but you also know you're not really connecting.
Yeah. Yeah.
So but like I don't really know what the answer is because I feel like it's not like it's not more apps.
No.
I don't
I mean,
think
I
the
think
answer
you're right
is
that like that you it's better to focus on a one or two and try to do those pretty well than it
yeah,
is to try to spread yourself onto all of them.
yeah,
Because I find that like if I spend a bit more time on a like a Facebook post, which is not a lot of time, just a little more, I will often get more. If it's a really kind of something that's kind of narrow interest, it might not. But you know, if I just go on Facebook and I'm like, feel like I'm living in an ocean. There's so much rain.
yeah,
I don't
yeah,
think I
yeah,
should
yeah,
expect a lot of engagement there.
yeah,
That took me. All I did was type it.
yeah,
But if I kind of put a little time in, so there's that. I think with Instagram, what I was feeling for a while was that like, oh my god, this post between like I recorded myself, then I synced it on iMovie. This took me like 4 hours.
yeah,
It's not. I don't want to become like. I'm not looking to become an Instagram influencer. I could have spent those
yeah.
4 hours like working on Ableton, writing something new.
Yeah, someone posted a clip from Seinfeld of just like how it feels being a creator on social media, and it's just
Yeah.
the clip of him going like, "What are we doing? What are we?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you mean
Yeah.
with our lives? Like, what is
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
this?"
Yeah.
Like, and it just, I, I don't know. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I think much like the industry itself, it goes up and down. And
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people thought social media would be around forever, and it's looking like I don't know.
It might not be. Yeah.
It might not. Yeah, or if it is, it's like we're gonna have to have weird questions about it.
Yeah.
Like there's already like I tried to like remove myself from the YouTube politisphere, and then I
Okay.
went back, and now there's like people already trying to shift the Overton window to like we should nationalize social media as like a utility.
Okay.
And then you have people of like we should abolish it and get rid of it, and
Mm-hmm.
then it's just like the debate of just like and then there are people talking about it like treating it like kind of a narcotic, not like a
Yeah.
cigarette, you know.
Right. Yeah.
And it's so it's like it's either going to kind of go out of fashion or we're going to have like these weird conversations of just like, well, if you kind of need social media to be employed, and a lot of people do,
Yeah.
where are we going here?
Yeah. Well, and I know that for me, it's definitely like this. If I'm in a good place psychologically, I usually kind of enjoy social media, and I
Same,
feel pretty
same
relaxed,
actually.
and if I get some nice feedback,
It's
that's
good to
pretty
connect with
nice.
friends too, where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you're working on stuff. That's cool. You're like good. It makes you
Right.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
don't need the feeling like, oh, I got to be validated by this. If I feel like I'm
No, yeah,
doing
me
pretty
neither.
good. But
Yeah,
if it's different, or to be honest, like I'm really grateful to be on this show and to do this
thanks for
Parkway
coming
show and to be with you and I've gotten some other attention. That's why I do it, so hoping to get attention. I'm also like, I can't wait for this to be over so that I can
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
relax a bit and not be like, you can start to feel kind of like I'm just too exposed and I just feel
yeah.
kind of, um, I don't know. It's that thing of like that, um, and it's hard for me to be creative, when
Oh,
I
absolutely.
get become very self-involved if I'm trying to promote stuff.
Ooh,
Um,
speaking of that, we this
keep
song's
it
about
going.
to end, and we're about to promote stuff.
Okay, yeah, we got to, yeah.
Okay, so we just heard the Roaches. Uh, we had the Beach Boys and Blind Willie Johnson in that set. We also had Elvis Presley at the top. Today's mixtape is made for Dylan Hicks, who's with me right now virtually. Thank you for coming on the show. I really
Oh,
appreciate.
thanks for having me again. Yeah, it was great.
So the record's out now. You can stream it. Where can people find you in the future? Where's the best place if they like what they heard? Where can they hear it again? And where can they get tickets to the show this Sunday at the Parkway?
Oh, yeah, thanks. Well, the shows at the Parkway. You can go to the Parkway Theater itself and get tickets that way in advance. And then we'll be out there again toward the late. I'm not going to, reveal that now because I'm really focused on getting people to
Get to the show. Get to the show.
to the Parkway show. I think maybe in 2.5 months there'll be another something something a little more low key. Otherwise, I have a website and I'm on Instagram and Facebook and always, happy to hear from people.
Absolutely. Well,
Bandcamp is a good if you want the physical object, or you can also interact with me there.
that is usually the best place to go. Well, thank you so much. The new record sounds great. It's great to talk with you, and congrats. The set, you can get 2 sets at the Parkway Theater this Sunday. Next week, we are going to be speaking with Joe Bartel, and stay tuned for Democracy Now!
Thanks, Doc.
Fresh Air Community Radio, KFAI, 90.3 FM in Minneapolis and around the world.
I accidentally turned the volume knob way up.
Oh,
Just gonna make sure Democracy Now! Actually gets playing, and but I'm gonna have to run after that. But this is awesome.
too, yeah.
Thanks for talking, and
thank you. Yeah.
really appreciate it. Congrats on the new record. It sounds awesome.
Oh,
I had a
thanks
lot of fun listening to it, and a lot of fun talking to you.
Good
But,
luck
yeah,
on your new record. I look forward to hearing more of that.
Oh yeah, I'll send it to you when it's done.
That'd
It might be winter. It might be a
Okay.
little bit more time. But yeah. But good to see you, and have a good one.
All right, we'll see you.